Because the people here are just awesome. Sorry, I get excited. I can't help myself. Anything that you need, it's here. You know, when you go out in other circles and you're talking with friends and people you meet, and people are complaining about stuff and they just complain to complain. Here, when you're talking to somebody, you're complaining because you're looking for an answer. And then, Mark goes, oh my God, you gotta go talk to Doug. He does this, he can fix that. You need to go see Fern. She has orchestrated that type of deal before. Like, mind blow. So it's fun to come, but it's got a whole different purpose here. And I don't remember what the question was.
Okay, I'm going to follow up. But I'm the moderator, but I'm going to tell you my story when I got involved with CFRI. It actually started before I got to CFRI. I was a New York City investor, and I went to different meetups, and I met other investors, and they were like, we need to have a group that meets on a regular basis, because I was going to seminar to seminar to seminar, and I'd see the same people. And then we started up a group which became the New York City REIA. And I was part of that group in the very beginning. So when I moved to Florida 20 years ago, the first thing I did is I said, I know there's got to be one in Florida. And I joined CFRI, and I've been a member here for 20 years. So I'm going to follow up the first question with why did you join CFRI?
It very much sounds like Jon's story. I knew that I didn't know what I needed to know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know who I didn't know. And as I said, I really wanted to learn a lot more about, at the time, my primary focus was landlords and how to be a smart landlord and what to do. So that was really my drive for initially joining.
But like you said, when you're dumb and you know it, life is so much easier because the answer was always yes. Hey, I'm interested. I thought I was going to be this landlord guy, buy and fix and hold, and then I started discovering other options, and there's so much stuff out there. You have no earthly idea until you start talking to people, and you can join in at any level. If you want to just bird dog, you want to just anything like that to get going, start helping somebody. There's mentors. You can pay for mentors and worth every penny. There's just so many different things. And then I was going seminar to seminar to seminar to seminar and just lost all over the place because there was just so much. And CFRI is so diverse, and you could go to a meeting almost every night, right? There's accounting groups, there's specialized groups. If you want to get into landlording, or think you want to get into landlording, go check them out. There's commercial. There's just tons and tons of multifamily. I can go on and on and on. So you don't know until you know. So just keep talking, keep going, and keep meeting, and keep networking. When you're not working, you should be networking, right? And this is the perfect place to do it.
The reason I got started with CFRI and joining the local meetups, again, it was in 2018. I've been investing for 5 years already. I started in 2013. It's kind of difficult to admit. At the time, I was really struggling in my business. I had a lot of questions and things I just didn't understand in processes in business. And it was really difficult. So being able to navigate that, or having to navigate that on my own, was challenging, to say the least. And finding something like a local meetup to find local investors to be able to help and find those answers was incredibly helpful.
I have a follow-up response.
Huh?
I have a follow-up response.
Go ahead.
You're supposed to have follow-up
Yes,
questions.
absolutely.
I have follow-up answers. So we keep talking about the things that you learn when you go to meetings, and one of the big differences between being a member of CFRI and having an ongoing relationship versus there's a lot of value in podcasts and seminars and books, and all of those things are terrific educational resources. But what I love at CFRI is there's always the contrarian point of view, right? So you go to a seminar and somebody paints this glorious picture of this strategy that's just bulletproof and made them millions of dollars, and they're like, you give us $10,000 and we're going to show you how to do this too. But what you find in CFRI is the guy that goes, let me show you where the holes are. Let me show you where that plan didn't exactly work. Let me show you the opposite point of view. So one of the things I found in CFRI is that often the things that I learn from a meeting or a group or a county meeting or any other meeting might not be the thing that I came there to learn. Like I'll go Thursday night, Joe Siegel is having an hour-long session on what the new legal regulations are. But when he's just talking, I mean, I'm just listening, because I don't know what that guy charges per hour, but it's a lot of money. He drops knowledge just as time goes along. So, and that happens to me pretty much in every CFRI meeting. I learned something totally different than what I went in there to learn.
Well, since you got the mic, tell us something that you learned that you thought you would not have learned if you worked on CFRI.
Oh, wow, the list is endless. So we were talking about 1031s earlier tonight. Fern Burr was presenting her strategy, how that was a win for her. I didn't know such a thing existed. And frankly, my tax advisor, would he be the first person to tell me that? Not if I had my own tax advisor, but what do I have now? I have a real estate informed tax advisor that I met where? At CFRI, because he's what? A CFRI business member. So when he sits down to do my taxes, he understands what a 1031 is and what is important for me as an investor in the long run. That's just one example.
John, same question. What have you learned at CFRI that you didn't expect to learn that or you don't think you would have learned if you weren't part of it?
Man, that's like everything. I had no idea what I was in store for. Really, I tell you a funny story. I knew so little, but I got involved with a couple people who were unable to do certain things, and they needed somebody like me, and I was naive enough, but smart enough to be with the right people, I guess. And I actually won a deal of the month with this one time. So they brought the deal. All I had to do was sign, because I had a good credit and some other stuff on paper. Signed it. Within a few days, they had it flipped, and I had a check in my account for doing that. That's all I did. I thought, holy cow, this is fun. This investment thing. This is rock on, right? So there's even stuff as stupid simple as that that you'll discover. It keeps going on and on. I love the people here, absolutely.
All right, Mark, tell me something that you learned that you don't think you might have learned if you weren't part of CFRI.
I'm going to stray off the path just for a second while tying back in front. So I was listening to a podcast recently and I heard a quote that I thought was really applicable to our industry, and it wasn't pertaining to this industry, but the quote, and I may butcher it, so forgive me, was, while we may be out for ourselves, we are in this together. And I truly do not believe I would have learned that had I not come to these local meetings. And I found that community is so powerful and so important to be out here to help each other that it just goes such a long way.
I'm gonna share something I learned, because as I mentioned, I was part of a REIA in New York City, so I thought I knew a lot of stuff, and when I moved to Florida, I was a pretty seasoned investor, at least a good 15, 20 years of being an investor. And when I joined CFRI, I learned about subject to, because that wasn't a thing we did in New York. And I was like, what is that? And for those of you who don't know what subject to, that's where you take over the mortgage for someone else without having to qualify for the mortgage. So for example, if someone has a mortgage on their house and you want to buy it, and you give them a down payment, they hold on to the mortgage and you just continue making the payments. And you don't even qualify for it. And I thought that was so brilliant. And it's a great tool to have in your toolbox, especially if you don't have excellent credit and you want to start investing in real estate. If you learn the subject to method, you can go ahead and do that. So for me, that was something I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Marvin, you mentioned podcasts. I'm going to follow up with all of you guys. Why should I pay $175 to be here when I could look at YouTube or a podcast all the time?
That's a great question. So, I didn't mention this before, but the reason I actually ended up in CFRI in a local meetup was from listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. They countlessly mentioned coming to your local meetups, being able to network and connect with other local investors. And There are so many benefits that are with being able to connect with somebody locally that you're not going to find by just listening to a podcast, watching something online. There's no interaction there. If you have a question, you kind of just have to resort to looking on a search engine and kind of fending for yourself, where there is a whole community here of people that are so helpful that will be able to answer just about any question you have, because there's so many experiences we all have in different facets of investing, between short-term rentals, long-term rentals, mid-term rentals, flipping houses, wholesaling, whatever, or SDI rate investing, 1031s. There's so many things that you can learn just by connecting with the local people here that you're not going to be able to get the same exact questions answered by something like a podcast or YouTube.
For me, it comes down to the word local. The podcasts and the YouTube videos and even the books, great information, but they're not specific to Florida. They're not specific to Central Florida. And that comes in very strong when it has to do with vendors, finding a good somebody to inspect my property, like maybe investigator. It doesn't do me any good if I find out who a great investor is in New York. Inspector, is in New York. I need somebody locally. Oh, and by the way, another 100 people in the room have used him. In addition, and you guys that go to foreclosure class will really learn this on the 20th from Chad. Chad goes right into the website for the counties in this area. We've done the same thing with tax classes, where they're going into the Volusia County website and showing you on the website, how do you find where the mortgage is listed. Nobody's going to do that for you on YouTube. Nobody understands what's happening and what's doing to Orange County and Seminole County. And who do you talk to, by the way, in that county if you've got some liens that are outstanding? And how do you negotiate those down? If you have any success with that, nobody that doesn't live here is going to know who you call to negotiate a lien on a property. That is all local, and that to me is the big difference with CFRI and some of the online resources.
Yeah, it's three things. It's relationships, relationships, and relationships. Honest to goodness, anything that you need is here, or somebody can point you in the right direction. And you start building relationships with people that you can trust, because you see them all the time. Somebody that is not going to be as honest won't be around. But we keep seeing these same people, the same faces over and over and over. We can keep building off of each other's the relationships is totally different.
A lot of people are afraid that you're not going to share all the information because you want to keep all the deals to yourself. Tell me why that's not true.
I have an opinion on that. Of course, I have an opinion on everything. So here's my opinion on that. This is my proven experience with this organization. Oh my gosh, I gotta say this without sounding sexist. Well, you just saw a woman present a great deal. So, but come on, you've all been around the dining room table with Dad your whole life, and what do older people like to do more than anything else in the world? They like to give you advice based on their experience. Like, is this true or what? How many Thanksgiving dinners? How many, where it's like, let me tell you the way it is, son. But nobody wants to listen to any of their advice, right? Everybody has more advice than anybody wants to listen to, except here in CFRI. So my answer to Phil's question is, people who have done it and have learned how to do it, just look at Fern when she just did that. She doesn't have to tell us what she did, the specifics, what the deal is. She didn't have to drive all the way here in her tornado to do it. It feels so good when you have successfully done it to have open ears that want to hear, how did you do it? And so they tell us. And if you're willing to listen, they're willing to share.
Mic drop right there.
It's an interesting question because I generally will not accept lunch dates with people, but this person had been persistent, and they took me to lunch today, and we had a whole conversation about direction on real estate. And they remember we had lunch, and at the end of the meeting, she said, "Why were you willing to do this?" And I said, when I first started, I didn't know too many people who was willing to share that information. information with me. And I'm glad to share that information with you under one condition. When you succeed, I need you to come back and tell me you did. And the stories I've had with people who have actually come back and told me what they did, it's priceless. You know, so I share information just because I like to see the look on your face when you actually get the light bulb turned on, and you actually do a deal, and you come back and say, look how much money I made. You know, so that's my
To kind of piggyback on some of that with being able to share the knowledge, what I've found is that from some of the older guys that have been in the business a very long time, they do not want to see the newer investors make the same mistakes that they have. And I know that that's absolutely true for me. I have made countless mistakes in the business, and I do not wish that upon anybody, because some of them are the things that keep you awake at night that you will not sleep. So that is a reason I believe that a lot of investors are willing to share the secrets implications that they have in the industry, because they have been through those experiences and they're not going to wish those on anybody else. And also, there's so many people that have so much potential in this business and in this industry that if they make one mistake, they're going to be out. And there's countless people that if they're able to help them, they're going to be able to go on and be very successful.
If anyone in the audience has questions for these members have been 5, 7, 10, you started the club, didn't you? I think but nonetheless, you know, these experienced members, so if you have questions, raise your hand, call us as a mic, about some of the benefits of membership, because there's a lot of benefit to being part of CFRI besides what we just told you. Yeah.
Who just joined tonight? Do we have any new members in the room who just joined tonight? Yay! Stand up. Stand up. We want to acknowledge all the people who just joined tonight.
Put them on the spot.
Yay! Yay! So welcome, and we will see you at a lot of smaller meetings.
Carlos, get them on. Ask them why. What persuaded you to say yes to joining?
I just love the environment. More knowledge, because for me, knowledge is power. And I really liked everything that you guys are doing, like innovation, education, and networking.
Great. Welcome.
The greatest CFRI, the greatest thing CFRI does.
I mentioned this earlier about the calendar. There are so many different disciplines, as you guys mentioned. People think you're in real estate, you only do one thing. There are so many disciplines in real estate, from foreclosure to wholesale to fix and flip to storage to commercial, multifamily, and all of that is shared through different groups that we have. I happen to lead the multifamily group, that's my specialty. I meet the first Wednesday of every month. You can go on CFRI and register for that. There's a new flipping class, and they'll teach you all about flipping. We have the women's group, which sometimes women like to meet amongst each other so they're not threatened, and you can meet them amongst each other. That was a very popular group we had before the pandemic. We brought it back. So you can, is Jenny here? Jenny, you here? You want to say something about the group? She's leading the group.
Well, so I'm the leader, and I am a syndicator now, so that's where people pool their money and go in on a deal, where you're spreading risk. You can actually use less money than if you go buy a property in many cases. The typical buy-in is around $50,000, and so, it's a whole different way to participate in real estate. And then there's Kay Norris, which is my assistant. She does a lot of flipping and short-term rentals. So between the two, we've got the commercial side, multifamily somewhat, and the flipping and short-term rentals, kind of a little of everything. And we both have bought from wholesalers. I've done flipping too. So a little of everything. And that's going to be the fourth Wednesday of the month. The same day as the flipping classes, which will be at night. We're at lunchtime. So,
Hopefully there won't be a conflict. We'll be polling people to see if we need to change dates, but anyway, hopefully that helps.
Some people had asked about the advanced class. That's a lunch meeting that happens weekly, and I've attended many of times. And what's beautiful about the advanced class is you talk about advanced things that you might not learn in the beginner's class. So you might be experienced and not a member, or just became a member, and you may have plenty of experience. You're just joining to be part of this network. And we have lunch, we talk about all kinds of topics, but generally they're more advanced things that happen in the industry. So that's another one that we also have. Someone asked me, how do you justify spending $175 a year? What would you say?
Man, that ain't nothing. That ain't nothing. The greater risk is not spending it, to be honest with you. Not knowing what you're getting into could cost you a career. Building relationships and learning can actually save you. And when we get to that, we talk about the greatest thing that CFRI does.
Okay.
We talked about earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have any trouble with the 175 again, because the first thing I heard in the first meeting I went is, you're not charging enough rent. So I got my money back right away, but the fact of the matter is, it's really not for me. It's not an ROI type of equation. It's really the knowledge and the information, the things that you learn along the way that, as I said before, you didn't know you needed to know. Over the course of a year, I would spend $175 on who knows what, and it would just disappear. And if the 175 seems big, we've got the 90-day trial. If you go to several meetings a month for 3 months, and you don't learn enough to justify an annual membership, then you need to have your hair checked. That's my opinion.
Yeah, to piggyback on what she said, as far as there is a lot of asymmetric benefits with the membership and being able to be a community and be around each other. But to be more specific about maybe an ROI example that some of you could probably better grasp. A couple of years ago, there was a presentation for a deal of the month, and somebody had their numbers up there, what they paid for granite, and I was trying to run through my mind, was flipping pretty consistently 3 to 5 flips at a time at that period. And I was like, how are they paying so little for their granite? So when I asked them, I was like, hey, can you share who your granite provider is? And come to find out, at the time I was paying $40 a foot installed for granite. And they had an installer that would charge $25 a square foot. So I think that year alone, I did 12 projects that I had to do granite in, and I saved about $1,000 because it was averaging about 60 to 70 square feet between the bathrooms and the kitchen. And I saved $1,000 in each one of those houses. So the 10 grand, just that 1 year alone, has paid for the next 40 years of the membership. I've got lots of examples like that.
I have a similar story. I did a really large project in New York, and because I'm a member of CFRI, I get the CFRI discount. And Home Depot sent me a check for more than $10,000 from the project I did. So again, that'll pay for I'm a lifetime member, because there's a way to get to lifetime membership where you're not paying dues, but had to pay dues, as you just said, that $10,000 check paid for a lifetime membership. So, just to give you an idea, one house, I think Chad had said during the break over there, the discount you get on paint on one house covers the $175. Good.
Yeah, so just in this last year, I actually was looking at some of the expenses for 2023 and looking at the Home Depot reports, because I do use Home Depot for a lot of projects. I saved, I think, $1,800 in paint this past year alone. So it is very valuable to be a member to have those discounts, because they automatically give you 20% discount, and there are other ways you can get paint discounts outside of being a member here, but it goes a very long way. And one other example, just want to add, if that's all right. There was a time a couple of years ago when I was having difficulty. I think it was 2022. We had Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole come through, and my my insurance provider at the time for one of my properties was just canceling on me. They didn't tell me why. They said, we're pulling out of Florida, you know, good luck. And every time I went around to get an insurance quote, it was ridiculously expensive. And somebody to kind of plug CFRI as well was like, hey, talk to Colleen here because she'd probably be able to get affordable insurance. And the quotes that I was being quoted, I think were $2,500 cheaper from her than it was anywhere else, and I got 10 quotes. So that alone has saved me $2,500 a year, the last one.
And as we said, we had meetings almost every night of the month, and your membership includes all those meetings. So if you live in Seminole County and you want to go to the Orange County meeting, that's fine, it's included. If you live in Lake County and you want to go to the Brevard meeting, that's fine. You know, and I like to joke, some people don't want to be home every night, so they go to a meeting and, you know, and you can get free pizza at all these meetings, you know, so, you know, maybe you're just going for the free pizza, I don't know. But,
I really think you can eat $175 worth of pizza a year, just by showing up.
Tell me about any events that you've attended. Now, as I mentioned, all those events are free, but we do have paid events on occasion. Tell me about a paid event that you went to that you just felt was worth your money.
Man, let me preach. I swear to God, the best thing that CFRI does is the bus trip. If you have not been on it, you've got to go and do it. Do it 2 or 3 times. It is like the best. It'll go for like 3 days, and one day will be classroom only all day long, and you'll hear from insurance and title and trades and money and all these different people get up and talk for an hour or so and tell you all these really cool things, and then you go get on a bus and they break you down. Say for easy numbers, there'll be 5 leaders, and then everybody gets with this leader and goes around. You're literally on like a big commercial bus, and you're going to houses. A real estate agent sets all these different houses up, and you'll go follow this leader around the house and get that perspective. And then the next house, you shift leaders, and then you get a completely, totally different paradigm. You know, I'm on the inspector side, so my stuff is more safety type of things. And you'll get somebody else that goes, oh my God, if you modify this space, you can get way more dollars per square foot by enclosing this or knocking that down. It's mind blow how much stuff you're going to learn, and there's so much stuff you got to try to see. You got to come back and do it again. Totally worth every penny on that thing. The bus trip, you got to go. I'm telling you.
We call that Junkers to Jewels, and as he mentioned, it's a 3-day event. You learn a lot in the classroom, and then you go out on the bus and get real world, you know, professionals telling you a lot of things about these properties. I think we're going to have it in April, and don't quote me on that, but we generally have it at least once a year. Marty, tell me about a paid event that you went to that you thought was more than worth what you did.
Okay, so this is ironic because I went, the one that popped into my mind, and there are many, but the one that popped into my mind was Robin Daniels' financial calculator class, which is coming up again in February. And it was so good, I'm going again. Now you would think, now that's not much of an endorsement. Why are you going for the rerun if the class was so good? And the reason is, she does such a great job of teaching you to use a calculator app that you put on your phone. It's like a $6 app to do financial calculations. That the first time I took the class, I went to the class thinking as an investor who's buying houses. So what's the time value of my money that I'm investing, that I'm doing it? Now that I'm in syndication and I'm considering doing other types of deals, I'm looking at, well, how do I use the financial calculator to get an answer to that question? So I'm going back to the same class because I've been exposed to different methods of doing business, and now I need to know how to make the financial calculator give me the answer. And you know, a lot of times in these real estate deals, especially when the market is more competitive, it's whoever can come up with the number first. And if you don't know the time value of your money and you don't know how to get that calculator to really break forth those secrets, that's really it. And I wanted to throw one other thing in when we were talking about the calendar that dawned on me. I'm so happy to see so many people here at the beginning of 2024. And I know we have a lot of goals for 2024. I certainly have a lot of goals for 2024. One of the other benefits of all of these meetings that we have every month is they re-energize me, right? Because don't we all somewhere during the course of the year just start to rest on our laurels, like, yeah, well, whatever, you know, I'm just gonna let it ride. But going to these meetings, going to the monthly meetings, this big meeting that we have and the smaller ones, they psych me up. They get me going. They get me thinking about real estate again, because it's very easy to take my brain and get it focused on something else. I'm sure I'm not the only one with an easily distracted brain. So put me in these rooms and I'm back on mission and I'm back on task. So if you have real estate goals for 2024, make one of them showing up for meetings. Thank you.
Mark, tell me about a paid course that you thought was more important.
So there was a class being taught by Joseph Siegel maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it was, I think, $60 to attend, and it was, I think, 2.5 hours or 3 hours rather. And as you had said earlier, that, you know, this man charges how much per hour, why would I not just go and listen? And at the time I was already using Joe as an attorney, and the things that he discussed in there, I think was subject to, which I wasn't doing a whole lot of, but I actually from that class went out and did a subject to deal just from going to that class, because I now have that in my tool belt to be able to actually perform and get to close and be confident, because I knew that Joe was confident that he was going to get the paperwork side done, which that was what was most uneasy about the situation.
And most of our classes, as you just mentioned, are under $100. I'm sure if you guys are on the internet or watch a YouTube video, they say I'm going to teach you all this, and then you click the link and you're like, hey, come to my free weekend class, as you probably heard Chad talk about earlier. There's a formula to that. The formula is to get you in a room for free, okay? Then they sell you the weekend course, which is probably $200. Then they sell you the 4-day course, which is $1,500. And at the 4-day course, they sell you the coaching program, which is $50,000. You know, so there's a formula to that. We don't do that here at all. All we're doing is sharing education and knowledge. And to piggyback off you guys, a paid class that I paid for was the trust deeds class. You know, so what I learned in that class is I can protect all of my assets. So if you look me up right now, the only thing you're going to see is my personal residence. And I'm going to take that out of my name soon too. But all of the other property I have is not in my personal name. So someone might be saying, why is that important? Do you know when you get into a car accident or something happens, the first thing a lawyer does is looks up your assets. And they want to find out, what is this person worth and are they worth suing?
Yes.
You look me up, I look, bro. Don't come for me, you know? So that was a valuable class, and I think it was $59, you know? So like, why wouldn't you go? As you mentioned, the lawyer himself charges over $200 an hour, and I get him for 3 hours for $60. You can't beat that, you know? Questions? Yeah. Check mic 1, 2, check mic 1, 2.
Okay, just another quick example of your value for your dollar, all that good stuff. I took about 3 years ago, took a $99 Saturday class through CFRI, Sandra Edmonds' tax class. Went to her class, learned everything. She does a very good job at actually teaching you stuff, not just telling you this is a possibility. She teaches you how to do it. Later that same year, bought a property from a tax deed in Port Orange, bought it off the tax deed list, literally mowed the lawn one time, sold the property to a developer. We had a few other liens to clear out, but very simple to do through the city. We got the city to cooperate. Anyway, long story short, we made, it was me and one other guy that did this together. We made a profit of like $15,000 or $18,000 in a couple of weeks. Mowed the property one time, and I got all of that from going to her tax deed class. So it was totally worth the $99.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? question up front here.
Hey, thanks for sharing all this information, first of all. Just asking you about your protection, how you protected your assets, putting it in a trust. After you took the course, were you able to execute that all on your own, or you still had to have instruction from the
Oh,
lawyer?
I can do it on my own, but it doesn't cost much to have an attorney do it, so you just let them do it. And it avoids mistakes, because the big mistake I see people doing when they do their own trust, they list themselves as the beneficiary. So you just defeated the whole point when you make yourself the administrator. So now they figured out, well, here I am, John Smith Trust. My name is John Smith, and it's easier to get an attorney to do it. It's like $200 a year, $300 a year. It's not anything that's going to kill you.
I wanted to add something to that. So not to get too technical into things, but as he's saying, where you're trying to protect your assets, there is a thing where you can do an assignment of beneficial interest, where if you're buying it from the property owner, you have the owner place it. It's all done at the closing table. It's all right there. You have the owner place it into the trust at close, and then you take over through assignment their beneficial interest in the trust. It never touches your name. And to also dive in one other thing, for some folks that may have concerns about getting financing with trust, I have had countless issues with it. It can be done, but there are certain lenders that do not want to place properties into trust initially, whether it's a bridge loan or you're looking for long-term fixed financing. So one thing that I have done, this is just my opinion, everything we're saying up here is our opinions, this is not legal advice, don't, just go out and talk to an attorney, is after a couple of years of owning it, I usually wait between 24 and 36 months after getting my long-term financing to then transfer it into trust for estate planning reasons per Dodd-Frank. You are allowed to move it into a living trust or land trust. But that way it also looks as if the property was sold, because there was a holding period. So if you went out, bought it, and then closed, and then 30 days later threw it into a trust, you're probably going to be able to figure out that you're still the owner. Whereas if you wait a couple of years, it will look as if the property was then transferred to someone else. Just a thing about it.
Got a question?
Can you specifically explain how the AOB works? Because in my field, and I work for a general contractor, but in my field, we cannot do AOBs.
I will absolutely not touch on that because I'm not an attorney. I will say speak to an attorney, because they will be able to cover you with all the legal ins and outs of the code and how it is written to make sure that your specific situation for that project, property, is covered. I won't dive into it, but
That's why I asked, because we were told that AOBs were no longer legal. So
yeah,
we could not use them.
I just did one like 2 months ago. And Joseph Siegel did it in closing.
And if you remember, he has a class this Thursday. He's going to be talking about some new legislation that's out about LLCs. And trust and believe, if you ask him another question that ain't got related to that, he's going to answer it. So it's well worth going in and listening. And again, it's free if you're a member to go to that class.
One of the things that when we talked about this was when Mari's on the panel, she asked if I had any ideas about what she could put up as one of the things she could talk about. And something that hasn't been touched on is when you go to a meeting, sometimes you learn things that have absolutely nothing to do with real estate. In my case, or in her case, she learned about a program where I'm on a pretty expensive medication. And somebody brought up the fact that they have these companies set up programs to help people. And it's saving us about $5,000 a year just from our medicine. So that has absolutely nothing to do with real estate. But when you go to these meetings, when you go to these hearings, these things, all of a sudden, the light bulb goes on when you hear something. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's something
That is great. I never even thought of that as a benefit, but yes, I've learned a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with real estate.
and then everybody's talking about how everything has enhanced what you get. And you talked about people, you wanted people to come back and tell you when they made a killing because of what you told them. There are people out there that I'm sure that you have spoken save them from financial ruin by what you tell them. And that is another angle that nobody has thought about.
Any other questions in the room? Benefits of membership? Any other real estate questions? You can ask us anything, actually. We got a question over there, Carlos.
$175 a year is only $14.5 a month. So if you can't afford that, what are you trying to do with your life anyway, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're not going to be buying millions of dollars of properties if you can't fork out the $14.
In actuality, I heard someone refer to CFRI as a very cheap country club membership, because you get to go to all of these meetings, you get free pizza, and you hang out with people that are talking a subject you like. You know, so even if you're not going to do a deal, it might be worth being a member. I'm going to share a story. That question back there? Okay.
I just wanted to second what Jon Bolton said. Jump to Schools. It's an awesome event to go to. I went to it this past year. I would definitely advise it. Yeah. Oh yeah, actually I haven't been in a while. Today is like the first time back, New Year. And I actually was at the house that Fern actually sold. Recently. And that was that happened during the Joseph John Fair. Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, do you guys have a list of mentors for different services or expertise?
We don't really have a mentorship at all with CFRI, but you can ask anybody any question, and it's kind of like a members mentorship. And there are people in the group that are doing business and doing deals, and they're always looking for someone who's new to do the work that they don't want to do. So you can learn on the job and get paid to do it. So you just have to get to know the people, who's looking for who. A lot of wholesalers are looking for burglars, for example. They don't want to do that, but a new person will be more than happy to do that in exchange to learn.
Can I jump in? By a show of hands, if anyone can, who in here is actually looking for properties right now? Rentals, flips, any properties? Please raise your hands as high as you can. All right, there's a lot of people in here looking for properties. Who in here is a wholesaler that is wholesaling houses? Anybody? All right, the guys and gals who just raise their hands, wholesalers, can you put your hands back up? Please keep your hands up. Those of you that are looking for projects, connect with those folks after the meeting.
That was a good one.
That's all this is just connecting with people. Connect the dots.
I'm gonna tell one last story about a class I paid for. It was actually a little more. It was a CFRI class. I paid for the class, and the reason I paid for the class is my niece wanted to get into the business, and she wanted to get into the entry level of the business, and I was way beyond that. I didn't feel that I would do her justice, so I bought the class in the hopes of teaching her. Okay, and I went to the class, and then the guy had a $1,500 course, which I bought. And I did it with the hopes of teaching my niece the business. For a little while, she was learning from me and doing it. And I was like, listen to the course, I'm spoon feeding it to her. Then life happens, and she stopped doing it. I had the course on my shelf, and I remember when the guy sold the course, he said he had a money-back guarantee if you did a deal, right? So I said to myself, man, that's $1,500 sitting on my shelf. Maybe I should just do a deal just to get my money back. And because it was such a simple thing to do, I did the deal and got the $1,500 back. And to me, that was the coolest thing on earth. I mean, I made way more money in real estate, but getting that $1,500 back for basically just doing a deal was very interesting. So, there are courses that sometimes they may sell you something, but with those money-back guarantees, if you do something. So the point of the story is you have to do something. You can't come here and sit around and think you're going to make money. You have to actually do something. And if you do, I promise you, your money dreams, your real estate dreams, they'll all come true if you follow that simple slogan that Nike made up back in 1990. Just do it. Okay? Questions? You had someone?
I have a statement. I was talking to Mark earlier, and he was asking me some stuff about the air conditioning units in a rental that I have. I had no idea what he was talking about. I've been doing this for 8 years now. And after I thought about it, I probably should know that, but I've got somebody else to handle that. So you don't have to know everything. The other thing that I'm surprised I didn't hear much about tonight is money, because when I first joined CFRI, I'm thinking, where's the money going to come from? How can I do this? I don't have a bank. I learned very quickly to borrow money and use other people's money
OPM.
to finance deals. And I've used other people's money on everything I've acquired.
Yeah, we have several members who, that's all they do is lend money to people to buy property. You know, so there's a lot of benefit there. I want to thank you guys for coming out. I want to give a round of applause to Mark Webb, Mark